get the additional support that you need either through tech where you can, but get the additional resources through people. And get the necessary support that you need so that you can add the value that your organization truly deserves. So when organizations say my HR team is not strategic, I go, how many people are in your HR team? Oh, 2. How many people in your organization? 1,200. And you really expect your HR team to be strategic? Like, that makes no sense.
Hi everyone, and welcome to another episode of All About HR. My name is Nelly, and on today's episode, I speak with Julie Turney. Julie is an HR for HR coach. She is an author, she's a fellow podcast host herself, and she is many other things. In our conversation, we talked about how is HR actually doing after 2 crazy years. Who's taking care of HR? How can HR take care of itself in a better way? And we talked about the importance of an HR community and so many other things. I think it's time that you go check out our conversation straight away. Before you do so, you know the drill. Hit the notification button, subscribe to the channel, and like this video. Thank you and goodbye. Welcome to another episode of All About HR. Hi there, Julie. How are you?
Hi, Nelly. I'm doing well. How are you?
I'm very well too. Thank you. And I'm especially excited and looking forward to this conversation, Julie.
Yeah, so am I.
Now, before we really dive into today's topic, Julie, maybe it would be good if you can tell our listeners a little bit about your own journey and how that pretty much led to your purpose, I think I can say.
Yeah, pretty much. I started my journey with HR at the age of 22 after my first termination. And just the way that I was terminated from that job kind of like really ripped me apart because I was terminated while I was in the last trimester of my first pregnancy. And I didn't know at the time that you couldn't terminate someone while they were pregnant. I'd never gone through any kind of performance discussions, any kind of performance improvement plan, nothing. And so the way that I was terminated just never sat well with me. And I thought, well, if this is the way organizations are treating employees, it's not right. And there has to be a better way. And that kind of like started my journey into HR. So I got my first HR job probably just down in my late 20s, just before I had my last baby. And I worked my way from being an HR admin through to being a CHRO of an organization. And one of the things that always stood for me is that HR is this role where we're constantly giving to people, we're constantly giving to the organization. Very seldom do we take time to step back and take care of ourselves. And so as a result of that, I experienced a couple bouts of HR burnout. One of them almost very close to either sending me into a mental asylum or to my grave. And if it wasn't for the love of my mother and my children, I'm not sure where I would be right now. But my mom ended up staying at my house for a couple of weeks and kind of like just willing me back to life. And that kind of started my journey back to like, what do I want out of this profession that I call HR that I love so much? Where would I best serve the people who I want to help and support? And I realized that in going through my process of healing, going to therapy, going and hiring a coach to help me kind of figure things out, that I realized the best place that I served was serving the people who serve the people. And so it kind of started me on this journey of, while you've been in HR for over 16 years, you know what it takes to make a great HR professional. I'm always giving advice, I'm always mentoring, I'm always supporting. But in this instance now, I give HR professionals what they deserve: a safe space to lean in, to heal. And so it started me on this journey of creating this company, HRatHeart, where I now coach HR professionals. And so for the most part, it's the things that we struggle with, putting theory and practice together. The moments that we have those heavy situations, whether it's a termination or, we're furloughing people, or, it's a situation where we're dealing with a sexual harassment suit for someone who should know better, and just the heaviness that comes with all of those things. Employees who are dealing with their mental health and supporting them, employees who are going through domestic violence, whatever it is, because all of those things end up at the doors of HR, because we ask people to bring their entire humans to work, right? And so when those things sit heavy on us, we then deal with vicarious trauma, which traumatizes us, but we have nowhere to go to deal with it. And so other than therapy, I was like, okay, well, let me see if I can make this work. And for the last year or so, I've been fully supporting HR professionals in their careers, giving them safe spaces to lean and grow and thrive.
I think this is such an inspiring story, Julie, and I imagine you've heard that so many times. But while I was listening to you, what I was thinking as well is that hearing you talk, the one thing that really came to my mind is in all of this, it's like, where is the HR for HR,
Exactly.
right?
Exactly my point.
I
And
mean,
that's
it's
why I'm here.
yes, exactly. It's like we've forgotten about that. And for the past 2 years, it's been all eyes on HR for looking at them for the answer. Are we taking care of our employees? So are we now going to try and get everybody back into the office again or not, et cetera, et cetera. And I think that we can already agree on the fact that next year, 2022, is not going to be any easier because there's still a lot of issues to be dealt with. And I think there will still be a lot of expectations on HR. How is HR coping with all this pressure?
Yeah, so HR isn't doing very well. Now, while it is that HR professionals are getting the respect, they're getting the responsibilities, they're getting the awareness to their capabilities of being more strategic. With more responsibility comes more pressure, comes more anxiety. And so, with all eyes continuously being on HR, I think it's safe to really say that we wouldn't have gotten this far if it wasn't for HR and IT. So for the last 20 months, it truly has been HR getting down into everything. But when it comes to mental health, um, the perspective from a lot of HR professionals, a lot of my clients say, the people in the organization expect me to be happy and chipper all the time, but I can't because this is hard, this is heavy. And I asked a question recently in the AIHR community about like, what is the ratio, a fair ratio of HR professionals to employees? Because I had a call with someone who said they just left their job recently as an HR director because the ratio was 1 to 700. And this is part of the other problem that we're going to see if organizations do not step up and recognize that they need to give their HR professionals the proper support, the unfair ratioing of HR to employees. Now, even when you think about the home setting, the family setting, I am one mother to three children. Now, back in my grandmother's days, she was 1 to 10 children. My other grandmother was 1 to 8 children. Now, at the end of the day, when we're thinking about making a family, sometimes my 1 to 3 children are enough to drive me crazy. So when you think about one person supporting the professional development, personal development, mental well-being of 700 people, that is huge. Now, where there may be some areas of you being light touch, if you are an HR generalist taking care of 700 people, there's no way that that is ever fair. And this is one of the things that a lot of our HR professionals are dealing with. They're not getting the support that they need to either have the best HR tech to offer the support. A lot of people are still doing stuff manually, which kind of really, freaks me out and makes me very scared for a lot of our HR people. Now, while it is that we love what we do and we love supporting our people, we love supporting our organization, it means it's not sustainable. We can't touch every possible facet of HR, because when you think about what HR is and all the different areas that it takes, if you are just one HR generalist managing L&D, managing compensation, managing performance management, managing talent management, recruiting and onboarding. It's impossible for you to be 100% effective dealing with all of those things. Never mind touching things like culture and diversity and inclusion. It becomes virtually impossible for you to touch all of these things in a way that is meaningful and truly adds value to the organization. And so this is the thing that I constantly talk about with organizations, with leaders, with HR teams. Get the additional support that you need, either through tech where you can, but get the additional resources through people, and get the necessary support that you need so that you can add the value that your organization truly deserves. So when organizations say my HR team is not strategic, I go, how many people are in your HR team? Oh, two. How many people in your organization? Oh, 1,200. And you really expect your HR team to be strategic? Like, that makes no sense. And so these are the things that we're dealing with. HR is not okay, and HR has not been okay for a very long time, even prior to COVID.
Just out of curiosity, though, when you asked the question in the AIHR community, what was the kind of ideal ratio or responses that you got from there?
So in the community, some of the responses that I got were, it depends on what the needs of the organization are. I also asked this question on Twitter. In addition, like, some people were saying, well, maybe like 1 to 200, 1 to 250. Funny enough, in the Twitter space, because so many people answered this question on Twitter, and some people were saying 1 to 50, 1 to 100. And I think on average, it could be about 1 to 100, and that would be okay, especially if you are a generalist touching all of those things and touching them effectively. 1 to 100 could be fair. In the past, I've read 1 to 40, 1 to 50. So the ratios do depend, and it also depends on the type of organization. If you have a really forward-thinking organization where leaders are really involved in the organization, in the organizational culture, and they are supportive of your HR initiatives, then you could very well get away with 1 to 200, 1 to 250, maybe 300. If people are, if the level of trust is high, and the culture is a supportive culture.
How we can take care of HR?
Getting HR the support that they need starts with HR. I think a lot of times, and this is one of the challenges that I had with starting my coaching practice, is that a lot of people would say, I've been in this profession for 10 years, 15 years, 5 years, whatever. I'm doing good. The organization I'm with is great. They support me. And that's all fine and well. But you still have to do very hard stuff. You still have to do very heavy stuff. Where do you go to get that support? And it's first HR recognizing that they do need that support, that they do need that help. One of the things that I experienced as I was going through this journey over the last year and a half is the stories that I've heard of so many HR professionals who have died because they never took the time to get the help that they needed. We lost quite a few amazing HR professionals through suicide, through COVID. We've lost a lot of HR professionals through heart attacks, aneurysms, because they haven't taken the time to step back and say, this is too much, and this is not okay, and I need to create boundaries that are safe for me. And this is the point that I'm trying to make. This is the reason why I advocate now for self-care in HR. My own personal experience with HR burnout, the stories I've heard of so many other HR professionals who vulnerably opened up and shared their stories. It starts with admitting to yourself that you are not a superhero. There are things that exist in the mind of creatives. We are human beings with feelings, with emotions. Whether we have families to manage or we are living on our own, we still have the right to be loved, to be respected, to be cherished. and HR is very heavy. It's very hard. It can be very fun and very engaging. As a matter of fact, for me, being someone who suffers from ADHD, I love HR because I get to touch so many different things. So it really helps me with my ADHD to be able to not have to deal with one monotonous thing all the time. Most HR professionals, studies have shown, um, most HR professionals do suffer from high functioning anxiety. We thrive in times of crisis. Most HR professionals do have a neurodiversity, but you need to get the help and support to help you be a better you. And that starts with you admitting you can't do it all. You shouldn't have to do it all. And then how do you move forward? The next thing I would say is that I try to advocate for a lot. So when people enter a coaching relationship with me, I always encourage them to let their managers know, to try to get support from the business, either to pay for the coaching, because I think it's important that you get that backing from your organization, from your leadership. As a matter of fact, one of the things that I will be advocating for more in 2022 is that coaching, HR for HR coaching, is included in compensation packages for HR professionals, because the two just go hand in hand. It should be a given that your HR team should at least be going to therapy at least once a month, or at least once a quarter, depending on where they're sitting. I think that these things are very important, but I want to help organizations to get a better understanding of why these things are necessary, because your HR people are not okay. And if you're taking the time to look at places like LinkedIn or Twitter, uh, you'll see when we're talking in those spaces that we're not okay. You don't have to look very far to see it. It's in almost every single comment of every single post that I put when I talk about things like creating boundaries, taking care of your mental health, self-care initiatives. And it's more than just buying an app and telling people, when you're feeling a certain way, go to this app. It's more than just a survey to see, how people are feeling with different emojis. It's more than that. It's going to your HR people and asking them a question. All right, how are you feeling today? Not just how are you feeling, but how are you feeling today?
Absolutely. Something else I really wanted to touch on with you, Julie, and you did mention it briefly already, but it's about the role of HR communities. Because when we're talking about HR for HR, does belonging to an HR community play a role here?
Absolutely does. I think that one of the things that I always tell HR professionals is find your community, get your sense of community, because it's the one thing that I learned in my HR career that I suffered from at first, was that I didn't have community. The question comes, well, where can I find community? And the first place I always say to people to look would be in your HR groups. So, like, if you're a member of SHRM, CIPD, then you can look in those communities and you can get support. And a lot of those communities can be very helpful. But outside of that, there are other communities that you could be a part of that will help you to develop and grow, and also provide a safe space for you. So some of my favorite communities, number one for me would be Hacking HR, created by Enrique Rubio. I absolutely love what Enrique has done in creating that community. He gives selflessly to the Hacking HR community. He's created mentorships. He's created different labs, learning labs. He selflessly gives by creating that HR conference every single year, where he puts all of those speakers together free of cost. That's a great community. And they have a great Slack channel that you can go into for free, where you can get advice, support, learn stuff. You can see what's being done in that community. It's very open, very transparent. They are open to futuristic HR thinking. I love Hacking HR. I can't even talk about them enough. I would say, if you are looking to upskill and reskill yourself, AIHR hands down. And the community within that space is absolutely beautiful. And I love the fact that we're able to share different topics and be so vulnerable in that space. And I just love how you guys have worked effortlessly to put that together. Third, for me, would be Disrupt HR. Um, I love Disrupt HR. I actually host Disrupt HR events in the Caribbean. But I think it's a great space to learn and to develop community. When you see Disrupt HR events come together and you see all those HR professionals in that space, it's just such a beautiful thing to see. And then the topics, so disruptive but impactful and really powerful to really help empower HR professionals to do better and be better in their organizations. That would be just a few. I mean, when I talk about HR for HR, it's something I could talk about all day. You really have to stop me. Because there's so much to talk about. It's not just the things that HR is impacted by the organization, by the way leaders feel about HR or the way employees feel about HR, but also how HR feels about HR.
For the listeners that might not know this, Julie and I, we have talked before, and so I know that Julie has a few really great tips on what each and every one can do themselves working in HR to just try and stay sane and be just that little bit happier throughout the day, right? And to have a more positive mindset as well. So I was going to ask you about that, Julie, if you could maybe share your, I think there are 3 or 4 of them, pretty easy things that everybody can do, and that could actually, be helpful. So maybe you want to share those.
Yes, I'd be happy to share those. So the first thing for me would be that's very easy, taking walks. Separating yourself from your work sometimes. Sometimes you just have to step away and walk away from it and then come back. Exercise is great. And then mindfulness, which is like very high on my list, actually. I love the Calm app and what they have created and what they're doing to help organizations, but also to help HR professionals. And at some point, they had a link where HR professionals, could engage in their services for 1 year for free. And I hope they bring it back. I'm looking forward to see if they bring it back because HR professionals need it. When I dove into mindfulness, it really does help with just keeping you calm, understanding the importance of staying grounded, being aware of the things that cause you anxiety and where your anxiety shows up in the clenching of the jaw, the holding of your breath, the putting your feet on the chair versus on the ground, and just helping you to be more aware of your surroundings. Mindfulness is very helpful. And journaling also is very good. Getting it out of your head onto a piece of paper where it's safe versus talking to people who you're not sure you should really be sharing that stuff with.
Thanks. Those are definitely a few, I think, very practical things that everybody can start doing straight away. Um, Julie, I believe that on your podcast, you sometimes do some, no, not even sometimes, you do some myth busting as well, right? So I thought I'm not going to ask you about a myth, but I thought maybe I can ask you about what, in your opinion, is the biggest cliche about HR.
Oh my goodness. Well, when the tables turn, that's how they look. Um, I would say the biggest cliche about HR probably for me would be that we love people. Every HR professional doesn't necessarily is not here because we love people. We're here because we want to see organizations do better and be better. We want to see organizations develop and grow. And that doesn't mean for us as HR that we understand everything, which is why we're always constantly in this space of learning and developing for ourselves so that we can help organizations. Because sometimes people do the craziest things. How do you love that? You can't. But we are here because we want to see people develop and grow and do great things and be great and help organizations to achieve their objectives and their goals. That doesn't always mean that we love people. We like we like people because we have to interact with them. But it doesn't mean we're all here because we love people and we think it's such a great space to be. No.
Nice one, Julie. I like it. I like it, and I think it's a very good distinction to make. So thanks for that. Now, something I always like to do in every episode, I'm not sure if you're aware of it, is that I ask every guest to share an epic win and an epic fail with us, and of course with our listeners. So
Oh my goodness. I've had so many epic fails this year. I think that that's one of the things that people don't get to appreciate because they see all the good stuff that happens on the end, but they don't see all the stuff that happens in between where you have those big fails. So, an epic fail for me would be earlier this year. I've been trying to put out this particular product, and every time I go to put out the product, I've suffered with imposter syndrome. It's held me back from putting it out. And actually, at the time that I went to put it out, my system crashed. So I had to start all over again. And because I've had to start all over again, procrastination has set in. So I haven't really gotten to it. So for me, that's an epic fail because at the time, what I had created looked really good and was ready to go. I was just held back because of what was happening in my head. Then when I went to launch it, my system crashed and now I have to start all over again. So that's an epic fail. An epic win for me would be publishing and releasing, self-publishing and releasing my book. Yeah, that would be an epic win for me. I wrote my book for HR professionals to recognize that they weren't alone in some of the stuff that they were going through. And I wrote it for the HR professionals who are here that aren't doing their jobs effectively to either decide that they want to make a change or it's time for them to leave the profession. That's an epic win for me. And then I created a journal and a workbook to go with it. And I'm really proud of that as well. So
yeah, thank you so much for sharing those. And it does sound like a really, yeah, a truly epic win, the book. And I mean, so people who are watching the video, you can see the book on the background there for Julie, and people who are listening in. So the book is called Confessions of an HR Pro. Definitely go check it out. Julie, as always, I've really, really, really enjoyed our conversation. And I mean, I may not be an HR coach, but me too. I could have talked about this for at least a day, I think. But so, yeah, thank you very, very much for joining me.
my pleasure to be here. Thank you so much for having me, Neely.
Thank you, everybody, once again for tuning in. If you haven't done so yet, please do not forget to subscribe to the channel, hit the notification bell, and like this video. That was all for today. I hope to see you soon for another episode of All About HR. Bye.